I hope you can hear me. So I want to do a reading, I think a short reading on the Titanic, the boat. Sorry, not the boat, the Titanic, the submarine. Just because I think it would be interesting to look into it. And I've just been picking up, I had been picking up certain things about it that I want to clarify for myself. So, okay, well, certain things I did want to confirm. Um, okay, so what I'm getting here, because I had thoughts about it. I had certain things that were coming to me about it, and this just kind of confirms it. Now, it was a one man job, so someone very influential, and Starlink, the owner of Starlink, has a hand to play in this. Someone who is very capricious, someone who's like a joker, but also very serious. So, like this card here, it's like red, almost like a joker, but his back is turned, right? So it means he can turn his back to jokes, to joking. So he can be serious when he wants to be, when he's on path, when he's on a path. And this is him, the person here. And I'm sure you know who I'm talking about, Elon Musk. So, and then even the coloring of the clothing, it's sort of like a Father Christmas. It's sort of like a Father Christmas clothing, right? Like he comes bearing gifts, so like Starlink, and I remember him offering Starlink when the war started with Ukraine and Russia, right? So it's all tied into it, this energy of the joker turning his back on jokes but being serious and walking down this path of getting involved in this submarine issue. And then this card here followed by this card here again, it's in reverse. But if you turn it upside down, so it's like a spoon, but like a spoon from the devil, right? Like eating at the devil's table. Except so the card being in reverse means those who ate at this devil's table, they're not different from him. They're not different from him. They got involved. They got involved, but they had no idea of what he was doing, right? That he was like that he had put his own stamp on this situation. They had no idea. So I'm going to look into why. um okay, so I'm going to try to pace myself because there's kind of like a lot of information coming through as I suspected. Now again, this card here, it's in reverse, but let me just flip it so you can see what kind of card it is, and then I'll flip it back. So this card was in reverse, right? So again, similar to this card of almost like eating or dancing with the devil, a clownish energy. So again, it's similar energy to what these people who were in the submarine, I beg your pardon, my voice. So it's similar energy to what the people in the submarine had, right? Except it's different because they didn't know that he has an alternate personality. They didn't know that. They kind of thought they could play that like a gentleman's club, like playing tennis when they do a lot of like things of leisure, right? They thought they could play with this individual, but it turns out this individual very much has a double personality. I mean, triple personality even, but just not like them, not like what they thought, not like what they thought. So again, this card here, but I'll flip it so that I can explain further. So you've got two spoons here. Now, though they're dining with the devil, this is them here. So like on the excursion, on the expedition. So they've gone, like they're sitting, right, to go. And this is him here, almost like, I will watch over you. I will watch over you. And but he, of course he did. Like, I want to say he didn't watch over them, but he did. So it's very much a deliberate thing. It's very, very much a deliberate thing. And some like my eye has been caught with the back of the card, fiery, and that is one side of his almost like an alter ego, another personality of his, fire. So they thought they could play with him. They think they can play with him. And I'm talking about people in his circle as well, but they shouldn't. They shouldn't. But they just don't know that because he holds he holds the cards. He holds the cards. And in fact, this card even, right, with water, I mean, it's actually the perfect card. Water, and then this the child is sitting underneath, right, inside the water, but the child is able to breathe properly in the water. I mean, imagine being under the water and then you're not just able to breathe, but you're actually able to use instruments of music because it looks like an instrument of music the child is holding. You're able to use instruments of music to blow, right? Like, where are you getting the air from? If not that you're breathing inside the water. So, what it signifies, as you can probably guess, right? He was involved and he was very, very much comfortable. Him and his personalities, very, very much comfortable in this that has taken place. So again, I'm going to look into why. But one of the first reasons, as to the why, because of his personality, it's a very Machiavellian. I won't say almost. It's very Machiavellian, a very joking. I hope you can see here. A very joking type of clownish energy, Machiavellian, um, very like he can dance on fire. He can if he wants to. But it wouldn't be because he can. It would be because of his alter ego, number one, and because people do not see or they do not know, or let me say they want to turn a blind eye to his alter ego. So by turning a blind eye to his alter ego, they end up feeding this alter ego through this character of his that he puts to the public, the more sane in quote character that he puts to the public. They feed this character, and that energy goes to this alter ego. The reason why he's able to do this, why he's had so much success this time around, even though, because, I mean, again, with the spiritual room opening up, it means whenever things like these happen and catastrophes, even what happened, it started with the cycle started with Kobe Bryant when he passed away. Now, when these things, spiritual events happen, because it's the spiritual realm, and in the spiritual realm there is no time, there's no set time. Time is it's time is not linear. Time is just very like mixed match. It means what has happened, when it has happened, it feels as if it was bound to happen, although it's not. I mean, as we can see, whilst the event was taking place and they were being we're looking for them, there was a countdown, and there was almost hope that hopefully they're going to be found. Now, in hindsight, after I guess the deed is done, it's as if it was inevitable that they were going to go, even though it wasn't. That energy of inevitability wasn't there like 100% before. Maybe a few people thought it, but not everyone. Certainly not everyone. So like it means these people who don't think twice, or who didn't think twice about feeding these beasts, they always think that it's not going to happen, that there's no way, that he is bound, whether it's by the world, by society, by this, almost like the spotlight being on him, right? The spotlight colors being on him. He's not going to go dark. He's not going to turn dark. He's not going to go into the darkness. But what they don't know is he is both darkness and light. And as long as when people feed him, he's able to maximize his lightness and hide the darkness, almost like pretend that the darkness that is seen is just part and parcel of his playful attitude, as opposed to a narcissistic and Machiavellian and malevolent, right? Spirit and attitude. So it's like people believing that his darkness has a limit. It doesn't. His darkness is as limitless as that sea that those people dived into. Yeah. Again, this card coming up, right? So he is actually insisting, because obviously when I do readings, I don't really just like, I don't only pay attention to the cards, but also what is happening in the spiritual realm that I'm picking up. And this is his spirit. He's like, I mean, this card I've shuffled, and this card out of the whole deck of cards, it's come up again. He is on his own. He's like, he's willing to own up. I did this on my own. But he's not going to own up. He will never own up, simply because, so he's got this energy of if you remember Travis Scott. Yes, it's Travis Scott. Travis Scott with the concert. And I remember saying then, even back then, I think I'll open that reading, that it was going to happen again in different ways. And this is it. And now people might think, well, it's not a concert. It is. It is a concert. So again, back to the card with the child underwater, or like this card here. Again, the child, simply because the people in that submarine, they were the brainchild behind a lot of things. And again, so one of the major reasons why he again did that, they were the brainchild to a lot of things that would have been um competition to him, his fire, his personality, even because he really thrives on his personality. Like he's managed to master the art of doing a lot of evil in people's faces, because people think that there are boundaries, right, to his darkness. They think his darkness has boundaries, and that they can provoke him, and he's just going to play with fire, and he'll play with them like a child. In fact, they infantilize him, but they have no idea that, like, they don't pause to listen to their thoughts, like the thoughts underneath the surface that say, how can a child play with fire? If he really is a child, that much of a child as you say he is, then how can he do such like, they don't listen to their thoughts, they don't listen to their inner thoughts, and then they infantilize him. And when you infantilize someone, maybe before, when the spirit room had not opened, that was okay, something okay to do, but not anymore. The more that you infantilize a person, the less room you have to see the fire in that person. Like, what you would be doing by infantilizing them is making them the light. You will be making the light greater than the darkness. Not literally, because of course they're not going to change just because you're mocking them. Like, on the surface, you are mocking them. Like, I mean, because lots of people, and I'm not saying it's bad or good, lots of people they tend to mock Elon Musk. Just because you're mocking him does not mean he's going to change. I mean, he is who he is, except your intention is to make him change for the better. But then a lot of people tend not to, when they're doing the mocking, the mocking, when they're doing the mocking, like with the mockery is not to make him a better person. A lot of people, like, they tend to they pretend it is to make him a better person, or they pretend that they are above him morally, the morally sound. So it's not really an attempt to make him like them. If anything, they actually want to push him away. So what I'm trying to say is the spiritual realm is very prominent, right? It's going to make these things, it's going to turn these things a reality. It's a fire burning. It will cook and present the result. In other words, whenever people criticize him or they mock him, what they actually want to do is to distance him as far as from them. That's what they do, or that's what they want to do, and it works. Now, in doing that, they are claiming they're better than him. They're claiming they're at a higher moral standard. So again, the spiritual realm. So the spiritual realm is like a pot. You mix and match, right? Now, if they are claiming, or they are sort of purporting, or they're pretending, right? Or assuming or alluding to the fact that they're better than him morally, then they will be, to a certain extent, spiritually. The spiritual realm is going to recognize their efforts to do that. At the same time, they push him away, because let's face it, unless we're not being honest with ourselves, nowadays, like, when people criticize someone else, it's not really to make them change anymore. It's more to gain points, maybe to gain social points, because look, I'm not that person. I'm not even in league with that person. So that's what they're doing. Like, there's no real incentive for the person to change and come to their side. It's pretty much set in stone, the division, right? So whenever people are mocking him or people like him, it's definitely for them to distance themselves. Now, what that ends up doing spiritually, it does distance him. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They are on a higher pedestal. So because they've considered themselves a higher pedestal, like he is almost like a blank check. They consider themselves, well, up until when he decides to do something of his own volition, his own willingness. But until then, he is a blank check in that regard, to some extent. Now they come in, these people like on social media, for example, they mock him. They place themselves at this high standard. Now, well, what does it mean? The spirit realm is not going to recognize this attempt to mock him, but also want him to be closer to you, because it's like, well, you have to tell us if you want him to be closer to you, because okay, even if you want him, even if we do that, we get him to, or let's say we lead him, we encourage him, or we sort of put in his head to do certain things that are going to draw him closer to you, like make him more like you are going to move several steps backwards so that there's a clear distance and a clear separation. So he's never going to reach that point of being next to you or even close to you remotely. So what does it mean? The gap is going to grow wider. Therefore, if these people consider themselves to have a higher moral ground, then by them distancing themselves from him, and I'm not even talking about like physically, in their minds, in their hearts, like the disgust they have for him, they distance themselves. Well, the distance is literally what the spiritual is going to achieve, is going to do. It's going to say, okay, you're at this level and you have put this paradigm, this claim of having a higher moral standard. Okay, you have a moral standard level 10. Like you take care of animals, you love pets, and all of that. Now that you're distancing yourself from him, guess where he is? He's 10 steps lower and 10 steps lower. And the more you criticize, he goes lower and lower. So, which is why he's gotten to that point. It's not putting the blame completely on people, on these people, but it's putting 100% responsibility on what they are doing or what they will do with this monster that they've created. Because what I'm picking up is he would not get there on his own. Now, this energy that they've created and like the distancing, at the same time, they recognize his genius. And at the same time, they recognize his evil. And at the same time, they recognize, in quote, his childish spirit. Maybe not in an adorable way. I mean, it's kind of half and half the way people see that childishness of Elon Musk. But a large majority do not like it. But they do acknowledge it. And they use that, I guess, that characteristics to their advantage when they want to mock him. I mean, in fact, that's an ingredient of the mockery, right? Like, he's such a child. He's such a child. Now, in all of these, the words carry power. They carry, and because the spiritual has opened up, these words are going to have an effect. What effect is it going to have? It will create a monster, a Frankenstein, who he knows his power. Because again, people do say that he is aware of his power. They do. He knows his power, but he doesn't know how far he could get. But from time to time, he does know how far he will get. And in fact, he does indulge in it, in that darkness, like we've seen with the submarine. Because people, it's like, when you get a sudden, like an injection, right? A burst of energy, you go, like, you're able to do more things. It's exactly like that. So recently, so it's not a coincidence that he's been involved in this, like with Starlink and this thing happening presently, because even though, I mean, I don't care if it was planned years ago, it doesn't matter. The spiritual realm does not work like that. It could have been planned spiritually today, even though in the physical realm, those people have passed or whatever. It could have been planned today, right? He's very much into esoteric things. So in fact, even as I want to see these people in the past tense, because they've passed, it's been announced they've passed, it's not clear that they've actually gone, because he holds their souls in his palm, and he could say, go and recreate yourselves and let this scenario be recreated again, and we'll have a similar scenario a few months down the line where people feel like they have a deja vu, and in this particular scenario it feels like much more of a dream, and like, or like a Mandela effect. Like, that's how far it's becoming, like the amount of the level of power, and all because people would not sit still. People would not sit still on how they view Elon Musk. Like they have different views of him depending on what suits them. They infantilize him, but then they say he uses fire to make himself above people, on top of people. So it's like, can a child really can a child really use fire, right? And if the child cannot, like if the answer is no, a child cannot use fire in a way at least that is not dangerous for others, then why are you not doing something about it? Like, why are you just staying at the level, again, almost like middle ground? Why are you staying at the level of complaining about this child having power, fire, rather than actively doing something about? I mean, if you see a child holding a fire bottle, like you're gonna grab the bottle from the child. You're not gonna sit still and say, "Oh, what that child is doing is bad. What that child is doing is dangerous." Like, no, but that's exactly what a lot of people do or have been doing. Now, again, one of the other reasons that I'm picking up, like why he is so implicated in this and not another billionaire, right, or trillionaire even, is because recently, again, events match up. Whatever takes place in the spiritual realm, like it all intertwined. So with the Russia Ukraine war and then other things as well that came up, like not only buying Twitter, but then getting involved in the American politics, or let me say politics of the Western Hemisphere, because even though it's not clear about his involvement in other countries like in Europe or the Western Hemisphere, the politics, and I'm seeing Canada as well, right? He has been, and he will continue to be because people have elevated him to that position. Again, back to what I was trying to say. By giving him these dualities, people are literally painting an image which allows him, ironically, it gives him way more room than he himself would have if he were to create this image for himself. Because see, if a child is holding fire, you're gonna see that the child is holding fire. But even though there's fire here and there's a child, it's much more, this side is less distinguishable. Like you can't tell that it's a child from here. So, in other words, with the image that people are painting, he is not acknowledging whether it's true or not, or he has the choice, because again, the spiritual realm will allow him to have the choice, because the spiritual realm hasn't is not forcing people to impose those paradigms on him. People are choosing to impose those paradigms all by themselves. They're taking it upon themselves to create and impose those paradigms on him. So, of course, he's going to take advantage of it, and he's going to grow to the point where definitely on this card, you can see the fire. The fire is certainly a lot more in quantity, but it also means like because they see him as, because they already call him evil, right? To some extent, they themselves have already defined his evil. They've painted an image of his evil, his childishness, and his fire. So, what does it mean? If he decides to step out of that image, they'll never see it, except they themselves wake up to the way, except they themselves wake up to the way they have defined his darkness and the way they have defined everything, like this picture, this painting. Because if they don't, he can always dip in and out. He can always dip in and out and even mock, in like laugh in people's faces and say, "Oh, you call me dark." Like in fact, he would own up to it, but he'll never own up to the extent to which he is in, like he is darkness. He'll never. Why should he? People keep claiming things on him, and then, well, it's now backfired because again, everything always starts from the spiritual, right? So what I'm trying to say is this fire and infantile image has formed itself around him to the point where even though like this Joker is meant to be an adult, it is no longer an adult in a realm where his childish side has had more attention than not. And again, I mean the childish side that people criticize and condemn. I don't really mean the childish side that people laugh about or laugh at, like, oh, this is adorable. No, I mean the childish side that gets criticized, that is used to mock him, to make a mockery of him, because it means, I mean, if his childish side is used to like only call him a child, that would even be better, because what would happen, and in the spiritual realm, what would be created is a child. Over time, his childishness would become greater than the fire he is holding. He's going to become much more responsible. I mean, ironically, I know, because how can a child be more responsible? But it's certainly better than a child that is defined fully as a child is less dangerous than a child that is defined as part child, like half child and half Frankenstein's monster. Yeah. So that is what is at play. And that is what has led him. It's like a fuel for him doing this, something that he would never have done before. Yeah, not saying that he hasn't been involved in like billionaires fighting or billionaires fight, but not in this manner, like not in this open, like an open sea and this open manner. Yeah. Yeah, and he's cooking up more, but not just him really, but like other people. So this scenario, it's like what Travis Scott did with the concert goers. It's going to continue. It's a cycle. It's a cycle until people put a stop to it. Yeah. So I want to look into just like the events. So now, okay, I might have jumped from the beginning, but that's just because a lot of information was coming through to me. Now, I did read, and really, actually, that's what led me to get down and actually do a reading, because even before that, I was picking up certain like suspicious things in that, so I read that the noise of an explosion or like an implosion was captured before, way before the countdown. And that's exactly it. Like this energy that Travis Scott created, it's an energy that has to be cooked, like people being cooked or souls being cooked in a pan of fire or something of that sort, right? And especially, again, just like the concert goers, they walked to that spot. These people also they walked to their deaths, in a sense, right? So what it means is, I'm just trying to look. How did this go down? Is it true? Is it true that did these people really die with the oxygen running out? Or was it something else? Did something go wrong with the submarine? Yes, yes, and yes, to the oxygen, to the oxygen. So what I am saying, they did run out of oxygen. It was running out of oxygen that did it. But any other information that comes up is more to, it's not really to blur the lines, but it's in order to maximize the shock. Yeah, because like this card shows here, they, his kind, like Travis Scott, Elon Musk, Starlink, they can't do anything without there being a lot of outrage, a lot of outrage. Again, and I'm going to open the Travis Scott reading that I did before. They thrive on outrage. Like it was a really weird energy when I was doing it back then. I felt it was very much like he was happy. He was happy. And actually, right, when he was doing the video, the apology video, you could tell that he wasn't serious. It was almost like mocking, like, yes, and I'm willing to do it again. I just need more time. It's only a matter of time before I do it all over again, right? Like you can't do anything. You can't do anything. And people forgot that. Just like people are going to forget this with Elon Musk. So now I'm wondering, even as this is coming up, I'm just wondering, like, when are people not going to forget? Like, is there any time or anything that is going to cause this wheel of karma to stop? Um, and there will. Let me just look into that. Okay. So what I'm getting here immediately, like what I got, when the skies open, when the skies open. So what are the skies? When people become magicians themselves, right? So let me pack this away. So when is it going to stop, or when are people going to stop forgetting these things? When the skies open, when the skies open, right? And the skies, what does it mean when the skies open? When people become magicians. So everything I was describing earlier on about the people who made Elon Musk, they would have to go back in time, that is in their heads, and or their words, because everything's spiritual. The mind is in the spiritual realm, words are in the spiritual realm, things that are invisible, that have the characteristic of invisibility, they're part of the spiritual realm. They are going to have to go back and deconstruct this Elon Musk that they created. Not just Elon Musk, but billionaires. And the only reason I'm mentioning billionaires is because they've been under attack. I don't want my words to be misconstrued. It is not an appeal to go to take it easy on billionaires or on a billionaire. No. As a matter of fact, it's for people to be certain, like for each individual to be certain about where they stand when it comes to how they view a certain billionaire or not. Like, don't claim this person is childish. How can a child be a billionaire? Like, be serious with yourself. How Be serious with your mind, because the fact of the matter is, if you continue to insult your own intelligence, then you're it sounds like a tautology. If you continue to insult your own intelligence, then your intelligence is going to be insulted. Like, what is an insult? Something that is, let me say, dirty, something that brings down, i.e., your intelligence is going to be brought down. So what does it mean? What it means is, you may or may not realize it, but before you even know it, your intelligence is going to be brought down so low you won't even know your left from your right. Which means whenever something like this will happen, like this catastrophic thing, event, you're not going to know when the next one is going to happen enough to stay away from it. So you could find yourself still going to a Travis Scott concert, even though you can feel the bad energies and like the devil energy, like the gates of hell open to receiving you. Like, you just walk right into it because you would have put yourself in the dark. Like, you would literally have pretended that there's no such thing as a sky. There's no such thing as fire. Because in order to even know that a sky exists, in order to even know that there's fire, something like fire, an element like fire, you would have to define it as fire. You would have to define it as an element. You would have to define it as a sky. But a lot of people have been pretending that things are not. Like, they pretend that there's no such thing as a smart billionaire. A billionaire can be both smart and stupid. You can't claim that he's not either of those things. Like, it's contradictory, and that contradiction is going to come out in the form of ambiguity, right? Because that's what a contradiction is. Something that is contradictory is ambiguous. You can't put, it's like it's neither anything or here. So what it means is, the person who has the higher level of intelligence is going to take advantage of that ambiguity. They're going to do a lot of things and not go to prison for it, right? They're not going to get caught out. They won't have fingers pointed on them and them alone. So the responsibility is going to fall back on the people who created that paradigm. Like, that's what the spiritual is going to do. It will say, this person does not have blood on their hands. Those who created this paradigm, they have blood on their hands. So here we go. It's gone, like, this event has happened, blood has been spilled, it bounces back onto the hands of those who are still holding this paradigm of who, let's say, like Elon Musk is, for example. So when the skies open, people are going to have to be clear about where they stand about certain things. If they're not clear, then it's going to move to another element, maybe like snow, like a snowfall, or even a volcano. Because if you realize, the elements have been moving and shifting. First, it was fire. Like, you remember the Travis Scott concert? There was a lot of fire, like the fiery imagery. People felt like they were in hell. Now it's water. people being drowned, right? And next is going to be something else like snow or something cold or maybe like whatever it might be, just an element. So what I'm trying to say, elements are very difficult to work against. Difficult. And it's not as if the only reason why people like Elon Musk would be able to use the elements or work with the elements is not because they're strong or that strong. It's because, like what I was saying earlier on, if you insult your own intelligence by pretending that, let's say, a billionaire, for example, cannot be smart, both smart and equally smart and stupid, or a billionaire can be both good and evil, if you do not set that in stone, then what is going to like if you set that in stone, like literally what's going to happen in the spiritual room, you build upon that, and the stone, in other words, like certainty is the stone, it becomes so heavy and so certain, then the winds cannot shake you, um the waters cannot carry you away. I mean, the fire is not going to burn you. Like, you're on the stone, you're on the rock, so you can't be moved. Like, you're still. So the elements, instead of the elements being stronger, the stone that you're sitting on is going to almost like absorb these elements and elevate you and put you higher and higher and at a higher level, to the point where these elements are no longer going to be able to affect you, right? To the point where you're going to be able to see through these elites or like these billionaires, and you'll even be able to tell, like, even without reading the cards, okay, this is what has happened and I need to do something about it in a way that I can take advantage of. Because again, with the reading I did on Travis Scott, like one thing that I saw, just because it happened to those specific people, it doesn't mean it's only those specific people that are going to be affected. Literally everyone that is on under the cover of the earth has the potential to be affected in one way or another, because this is like the weather. I mean, elements, right? The weather, the element of water, the element of fire, it's all tied into the element of the weather, right? They're all elements. It's the same category. There is weather everywhere. There is a sky everywhere. It rains literally everywhere, to different degrees, of course. Likewise, to different degrees, people are going to experience like the after effects, the aftershocks of these things. And it's not the only thing. Like, I do see another a lot more events. Well, another event. Let's see. And again, I keep losing my train of thought, but I was going to say, like, again, it's not that the Elon Musks and, people like him are like billionaires are so intelligent and able to master nature, the elements. The reason why they are above in being able to go back and forth and utilize it, right, to sink, and I guess like take other people's souls. Again, it's not because of their intelligence, but it's because people themselves, other people, have insulted their own intelligence. So if you insult your intelligence ends up making you lower than someone like him. So what it means overall is you will always be lower than him if it comes down to esoteric things, things of the spiritual, which are everywhere. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely going to be one more. Okay, not many. One more like, yeah, one more. Before people sort of stop pretending. Okay. I'm just trying to see, like, I'm just trying to see what this event would be. It's to do with snow. It's to do with snow. Um, yeah. It's to do with snow. Like it's snow, like an avalanche or snowstorm. Yeah. It's to do with snow. Yeah. And people going into it willingly. People going into it willingly. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Um, it's like people have a death wish. I mean, like something they've been warned about, but not wanting to listen. And even though it would look like a natural occurrence, it's not. It wouldn't. It's not. It's not. Yeah. So this is for the future. Like I don't see there being survivors or like a survivor. It feels like there's going to be something heavy, something heavy. It's to do with snow. It's to do with snow. When it comes out more, I guess like maybe not the event, but when it comes out more, because I'm not picking the cards are not really like explaining, but the main thing is that these people are going into it eyes wide open. Like in other words, literally, even though it may look like time has passed, would have passed from this submarine incident to those people, like to that event happening, it would seem like moving from one place to another. In other words, it would be like time has not passed for these people. So these people would have seen what's taken place in the spiritual realm. Because again, with the Travis Scott reading, I remember saying that, talking about the fact that it was very clear it was a sacrifice. It was very, very clear. But still people would forget and they would still, like he would be even richer, he would be wealthy after that, and as a result of that. So it's like the same thing, the same game, the same thing, this again the same concert. Like now, actually, I mean, this time around, like fire and then water, I know like the mix can create, I guess, like snowball effect, kind of thing. So it's like snow, and these people would have gone into it willingly, like eyes wide open. And I guess I'm only saying this because I mean I'm not there yet, like, but I feel like it's gonna be as if it's, even though it would be someone else's fault, like the likes of Elon Musk. And I'm not saying Elon Musk for that time, I'm saying the likes of, in other words, an outside party that is involved, that has a hand to play in this. It's not that person's fault. Like these people would have handed over, like given in to that person using them as an example of like a show of power. Yeah. Yeah. So the narrative that would be, so I guess this matters because, right. So one thing I'm picking up, what the card was saying earlier on about people no longer forgetting when the skies open is because one of the one of the time pockets that enable people to forget. It's almost like right after or during the event where they pretend they can't pick up the underlying energies. So if you can see that there is at least some degree of responsibility on these people, then you have to wake up to it and own up to it. Otherwise, you could go under again, like under into the delusion, because it would be delusional to not see that, okay, though this was like a ritual of sorts or whatever, there was a death, right, or there were deaths, you can't remove the responsibility from these people, right, as well. So make it clear, are you going to like uh blame only one side, or are you going to are you going to pay attention to what your eyes are seeing or what your mind is picking up, that these people, they had a say, they signed a contract of some sort, or like they knew what they were going to do, so like ticket concert goers, like if you're buying a ticket, that's your hard-earned money. And I'm not saying not to go to concerts. I mean, like, I'll go to concerts, if I can. So it's nothing to do with that. It's just to say you're literally handing over something. You're writing something down that is to do with you, i.e., your soul. You have to recognize you are your soul as well. So whatever you do, or whatever these people are going to do, it's on them. Yeah, it's on them. So any attempt to remove that from them literally means, like, as you try to remove it from them, you are going to go under that delusion, and you're going to find yourself experiencing the same type of tragedy. Not you, maybe not you personally, but I mean like watching this tragedy literally at play. Yeah. And it's going to be like a captive audience, right? A captive audience. Like when someone is a captive audience, it can be very distressing. It's as if you're stuck in the movie theater, you can't leave, and yet the scenes on the movie are really horrendous. It's like that. I mean, with the Travis Scott concert, there were so many people that were dying. Like you could see the panic, you could see the tears, the screaming, the testimonies, like people coming on camera after the fact and saying it felt like hell, it felt like we're in hell, but you still cannot look away, like, because anytime you try to look away, you look away, it's there. There may be an alert coming up. You go on Twitter, even if you mute the words, someone is still going to bring it to your consciousness. The reason why that is possible, right? For energies to keep coming into your circle, like into your vision, is primarily because of that, like not protecting yourself from what people want you to see. Yeah, if that makes sense. So, um pay attention to any events that have to do with snow in the, let me say, like in the long term future. Yeah, or like in the future, because that's what I see coming. Yeah, that's what I see coming. Okay, if you have any questions about this, do let me know. I know that I sort of jumped from here to there, but that's also the information that was coming through. I know that I also mentioned about, like, the billionaires in the beginning. um that just ties in with Elon Musk, in that, I mean, if he is feeling threatened, or he's feeling like playing, right, with these billionaires, then the Machiavellian energy that people have painted of him is going to come into play. And he's going to, because he can only work with what he's got in his life and what is to do with him. He can't, he's not a school teacher, so he can't go into a class and shoot children, right? He can't do that. It's not in his circle, it's not in his sphere, right? It's not in his paradigm. So he's going to do what he's going to go where he knows best, which is equipment, things that make people, that make information travel, and he's going to tinker, he's going to work on those, right? Hence why this, for example. So it's like, if he gets upset, just like a teacher, for example, like if a teacher gets upset with their children, and then the teacher gets this energy painted of them spiritually, and then the energy kicks in, and they buy into that energy, right? And they go off on that, then they're going to go, let's say, kill children, right, in the classroom or whatever. But since he is not a school teacher, He'll do what he knows best. His life is to do with money, is to do with billionaires, is to do with wealth, power. So, meaning, if this energy, this Machiavellian energy kicks in and starts working in his brain, in his mind, then he's going to go to his perceived enemies, which is other billionaires, other equally as influential people. Yeah. So that is what is at play with what he did with these people. So did he sabotage? Like, again, sabotage is very is a strong word. He didn't need to do anything. He just needed to sign over, like sign over responsibility. Yeah, responsibility. Like, a lot of people, again, that's something that people have been overlooking. A lot of people think, rightly, of course, that yeah, these people were given like waivers, right? They signed contracts. Though that's true, it's not the image that Elon Musk has been trying to feed to the public, right? Again, he's been trying to feed something different, and that's all part of like his charade that is really enabled by the people who can't quite sit still on the image they're painting about him. So it all plays into that. In that he's been painting this image, right, of someone who is uh very, again, like a joker type energy, type spirit, someone who is very oh, what's the word? I think the word starts with E. Just like someone, E something. Someone who is not too normal, eccentric, right? So he has an eccentric type of image. He plays off of that eccentric type of image. And with people who are eccentric, you give them a pass. You cut corners when you're thinking about them, right? And he loves that. So that eccentricity, is what he plays off on. But if you notice, really pay attention to, like, though he's eccentric, he almost makes you want to forget, or he almost like wants to make you forget that eccentric side when he is talking about something more dangerous about life. Almost like this energy of, no, this is serious. Don't even play about that eccentricity with me. This is to do with children, right? And stuff like that. So he has that image of seriousness when it comes down to it, except he's not. Because think about it. If Why would he contribute in any kind of way to a contract that literally talks about death several times? Like, it doesn't add up. And I know people think, oh yeah, he's got a space program, or it doesn't matter. This is something different. Like, well, it's one and the same, but it's also different, right? Like, I hope I'm not going too fast, but what I'm trying to say is this image of seriousness that he's been trying to build up for the past few years, especially on social media, which is like a medium of spiritual communication as well. He's not doing very good. Like, it says death and death and death, and reports are coming out about already red flags being raised about this trip, or like the device that was used. So you would think that someone like Elon Musk, who likes to, especially recent, like, who likes to stand on his podium and make these declarations about needing to be responsible in such X kind of way, and he's not. it's it may seem like it's not inconsequential. Spiritual things hardly ever appear as consequential as they actually eventually become. If you ignore that little thing, that discrepancy, like that, it's not adding up. If you ignore it on the basis of, well, okay, all right, I guess that's just that. It doesn't matter. It will matter. It will come to matter in the way that we've seen with the submarine, in the way that we've seen with the likes of Travis Scott, right? Because so many things not adding up, and yet people were still willing to go to that concert, and people were still willing to trust this eccentric guy. So you have to wonder, even behind the scenes, what made these billionaires, or this, even like the 19-year-old, be willing to trust. I know that he went with his father, but it's one thing to think of your father, let me say, like, being in danger, but you're hopeful that this billionaire is going to is responsible enough to look after your father, right? Or to keep him safe. It's another thing for you yourself to go into it. So, what exactly did he do to them, whether in the physical or in the spiritual realm, to convince them, right? And especially this 19-year-old, because let's face it, when it comes to death, young people are not really like, oh, I want to die under these circumstances. Again, no. So at least I'm not saying that from the spiritual realm anyway. So like what convinced him, if not the fact that that eccentric Elon Musk, he has a way, again back to the card in the beginning, like the Joker, he has a way of making things light. That Joker card, like he was walking in the sunlight, like the card in the beginning. So it's like he walks in the sunlight as if what he's doing, because he's this Joker who he owns up to his Joker, like his Joker status. He owns up to that spirit, but it's only tiny. When it comes down to it, he can really deliver the result of safety and saving lives, right? He gives that image, and it makes, do not buy into it, because once you do, then it becomes very difficult to see his hand at play with these deaths or with anything else connected to it. Yeah. Yeah. I'll leave it here. If you feel free to ask me any questions that you might have, and I'll do my best to answer your questions, maybe in a reading or in the comment section, but feel free.